So I've finished off the fuselage. I've obviously put the tail on as well, which is exactly the same as the 3-channel version. So you just follow the guides, and I've also made up the lower wings. The only difference being is that the centre part, the former, is slightly different in its shape. I think the ribs are the same, the D14s, but D18 is that, I think, that is not angled like the 3-channel version, so that's flat, and there is a plastic part that sits on that as well as a bit of reinforcement, which is P10. Once again, same part numbers, just different shape on the 4-channel. So that literally pops onto just pops straight onto the top of the 2mm part. So there we go, and then this part, as per the instructions, we just split it, or nearly split it, and it forms a double thickness rib, like so. Let's just give that a little bit more. That's better. You can actually split it entirely and just obviously glue them back together. But, this is a nice, accurate, easy way of doing it without splitting them into 2 parts. There we go. So we'll just let those 2 parts dry off, and then we'll bring everything together. Right, these should be dry now, so it's a simple process, as per the instructions, of slotting them together like so. So this brace provides a 0 dihedral wing, lower wing, and obviously that's the idea, being that's what the original aircraft used to exhibit or have, or was designed. Just let that go. As a consequence, obviously with the 4-channel kit, these sides here have been lowered, because obviously with the dihedral in the 3-channel, the wing actually exits the fuselage a little bit higher up, so that's why we've got this like so. Now, obviously, how these all fit together is that those little tabs at the top go through the holes in the wing, like so, and then we basically glue everything together. You might need to give these a little bit of a pinch, because that hole is quite a tight one. The ribs themselves obviously don't need to have the sticker covering like the ones on the outer wing, because these get incorporated into the fuselage, so you don't see them. So that sits there, and so you've got 2mm of the 4mm wide rib poking out, and this then sits over the top like so. So I'll glue all of that together, and then I can leave it flat on the bench to all set, and then we'll attach it to the lower part of the fuselage. So we now have our nice flat wing, and I actually put a little bit of CA once this was together, to stiffen it up, which it's done nicely. And this is probably the easiest lower wing attachment of all aircraft we do. It should just neatly slot in there, and the gaps on the wing to fuselage are 0. So literally we just need to glue that in place and we're done, and then I can get on and you can get on with all of the other stuff that needs doing, that is in the assembly guide that you've got. And I don't need to show you, I don't think I need to show you anything else until we start putting the well, certainly the cabane struts together, and then obviously the top wing. Oh, and also the other thing that I was going to mention is that before we put the top wing on, it's quite a good idea that we put the electronics in. So I don't know what it says in the manual. Let's have a look. When to put the electronics in. So yes, here we go. Well, that was a lucky find. Page 22. So it is suggesting that we go for the installation of the the installation of the electronics. So as per the instructions there. So that's cool. Excellent stuff. And I might even use the little trick that's in a previous video that I shot about putting the where is it? There we go. About mounting the receiver with the power cable running underneath and coming up the other side of the board. So that would probably work very well in this kit. So we'll give that a go as well. If you want to see the video about mounting this, I'll put a link in the description for you to see that. Now I've been busy putting on the bottom wing, and we've got the lower part of the chin on as per the instructions. I've also created the undercarriage. It's all the same, channel 3, channel 4, doesn't matter. And I have stuck that on, put the little sticker that goes over the bare bit of the plastic on the undercarriage, and feathered that in, and that's all there. But the next step, as I said, is creating that top wing, but we've got a few other bits and pieces to do first, that are, once again, 3 channel, 4 channel, doesn't matter. It's all in the assembly guide that you've got. But there is one thing that we brought out when we announced the 4 channel Fokker, and that was some 3D printed parts. And if you've been lucky enough to get those early orders in, you will have got a free 3D part upgrade, which includes the machine guns, also includes some of the motor detail as well, which is great. But I'm going to actually assemble. I'm going to paint the machine guns that go in there, and I'm going to place them on the forward part from the deck from the cockpit. Right now, before we go with the top wings, because it's just easier to place. So I'm going to go and grab those now, and we'll get painting them. And I've got a few little hints and tips that we can use. If you didn't get one of the kits that came with the 3D printed parts, then obviously the kit itself has machine guns that you make up as per the instructions, and you can fit those now as well. Or alternatively, you can actually buy the upgrade pack from our website, and I'll put a link in the notes at the bottom, and so that you can link to that if you wanted to upgrade the look of your Fokker DVII, whether it be 3 channel or 4 channel, with the new parts. So let me go and grab those parts, get my paintbrush out and the paint, and we'll start lathering on the colours. So I've got my little machine guns here. Now you've probably been supplied yours on a raft that also contains the engine top and the little exhaust as well. And in fact, what you can do with the whole raft is just paint it all in a single colour to start off with. Now, I usually use black, but I've just realised I'm running a little bit low, so I'm going to also, I've got a dark grey blue here that will also help. The other thing is on the ends of the machine gun, we can actually, there basically was installed a softened pad that was supposed to help with any sort of striking of head or body, torso, etc. on the machine guns in certain circumstances, and certainly sort of soften the blow. So we can actually add a little bit of colour detail at the back there. You'll see in the leaflet that's included with this that there's a guide in there that's coloured that allows you or shows you where to put the detail. But there's also going to be a little bit of trickery in what I do here. Nothing that takes too long, but something that will really make them stand out and get all that detail popping. So what we'll do, let me just see what we've got left in here. Oh, there's quite a bit there, so that'll do. I only need a few drops really, so do just paint the entire thing. Whilst it's on the rack, it's easier to hold, and if I need to, when we pop it off the rack that it comes on, which it forms on when it's 3D printed, if we've missed any spots, we need to just cover over some of the pinpoint marks where the sprue actually attaches to the part. Then we can just give it a quick dab, just working the paint into all the areas. Nothing subtle about it, just getting it good. This is just an acrylic I'm using. As you can see, it takes very well to the resin print. I'm not too worried about the underside of the machine gun at the back here, because that's just going to sit inside the aircraft fuselage. Just make sure I get all the detail covered on that side there, because there is quite a bit of detail. Go. Not too much on this side, detail wise that is. There we go, and I'll coat the back as well, where we're eventually hopefully going to paint it brown. So that looks like we've got a good covering. So I'll just pop that. The acrylic doesn't take very long to dry. This is just a matte black. There we go. There's nothing sophisticated or skillful about this, which makes it accessible for everyone to do. There we go, and as you can see, it's a nice rapid process. Great. Okay, well, we'll let those dry off, and then we'll remove them from the sprues and just add our little detail, and also the popping of the detail as well. Now to get these off the sprue. This has to be done relatively carefully. They're quite delicate. But, I tend to use either pliers or tweezers just to remove some of the sort of more delicate areas. So the little attachment points are very thin at the point where they do come into contact with the part, so they tend to break off quite readily, but there are certain areas that need a little more attention than others, and those tend to be around this area here. You've got to be quite careful. And sometimes it's easier when you can move some of the stuff out of the way. This little one at the back. Yeah. There we go. It's not too bad on this side because there's not so much detail. In fact, you can usually, once it's no. Okay. So as you can see, there's a few little places where the paint hasn't gone, but because the there's a few spots missing there. Or is it coming off on my hand? No. So I've still got some paint left here. So let me just get my brush. That's still wet, thankfully. Just brush a little bit more on. There we go. Okay, and once again we can just put that to one side, let it dry. I'll crack on and get this one off too, and then we will come back and get the ends painted brown and start thinking about doing a little bit of the weathering. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of tan or brown to put on the ends of the machine guns to represent that padding. Just clean that up. I've got I haven't got the exact brown, so I've got some dark earth. I've got some. This is actually supposed to be a light rust, but it's very yellow. You can see it's the yellow that's in there that I've used previously. So and I've got some black in there too, so we can see what happens. Don't need a great deal. Freeing up. There we go. Right, let's give that a mix. Maybe darken it a bit. Okay, it's going more green. So maybe we need to put in a little bit of red there. Oops. keep hold of it when you shake. It's always good fun mixing these paints. So that's a little bit more like it. There we go. Okay, so let's grab our machine gun and then just daub on. There is a line there, it's quite light to sort of guide you. Go. I think that'll do. You can see I'm hardly using any paint at all here, it's just such a small amount. There we go. That should do it. So once again, let that dry off. And we'll come back for round 3. So here we have our freshly painted machine guns, SPANDAUS, and just before we mount them onto the aircraft, we're just going to give them a little dusting. So I'm going to show you how to basically make a lot of this detail stand out. Now, I used to dry brush them. So what I'd do is basically get some silver paint and get a sort of a stubbly brush, and then put some silver onto that onto the brush. Really wipe the vast majority of it off until the paint was almost dry on the brush, and then just wipe it over the surface of the painted part, and that would deposit tiny little bits of silver, certainly on sort of like the edges and areas like that, and it would make things really stand out. But I haven't got anything on that brush, but that's how I did it. But there's another way we can do it, actually using a little bit of graphite from a pencil. So basically, let's just, I'll use, we've got a blank page in here, possibly not. No, so I'll just use a little bit here. Okay, it'll mark it, but for the sake of the video, so I'm just going to use a scalpel to scrape off some graphite, like so. And then using the paintbrush, I'll just pick up that graphite and then dust it. Now, I'm not sure whether this is actually going to show up very well on the video, but you will, in front of your eyes, you'll be able to see how it transforms the look of the black, giving all of those edges and also a sort of a metallic sheen to the whole of the machine gun itself. So really sort of picks out those edges and detail. So there we go. There's one done. I'll get the other one done, and we shall mount it onto the fuselage. Before mounting the guns, I have just detached these little parts from the plastics sheet. P6E, there are two of them. And they're little representations of the machine gun belts. So you can actually, following the instructions within the main manual, and let's have a look. So on page 20, you'll see the last stage of the assembly of the standard machine guns that come with the kit. P8E is the part that just slots into the right hand side of the both of the machine guns, and then those are obviously mounted to the aircraft. So they get, if you curve them before you mount them on the machine gun, literally just with a little blob of the foam to foam, and there's a spike one end which is going to go into the fuselage. So it's the sort of mushroom end that you want to just add a little blob of glue to. Okay. And that just goes into the little machine gun port, ammunition port, I should say, on the side of the machine gun there. So just add it there, let the glue dry somewhat, and I can do the other one now. So I haven't mounted this gun yet, I've just dry fitted it. As you can see, the position is pretty simple. There's obviously a slot here that takes either the 3D printed or the standard kit machine gun, and the sort of main bulk of the rear of the machine gun just slots down into that slot there, and it shouldn't come further forward. The muzzle itself shouldn't come further forward than that bulkhead there. That's exactly where it should sit. And you'll notice that there's a little spike on the rounds, the machine gun belt, and all you need to do is just with the tip of a scalpel, just pop a little hole in there, just so that you can guide in that spike, like so. And that's basically how the machine gun is mounted onto the aircraft itself. So what we're going to do now is, because that nothing's been stuck yet, I'm just going to remove it. Make sure that ammo belt is sticking out, and then I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue to obviously hold the machine gun in place, just in this slot here on the edges of the foam, and at the front there. And then we can mount the machine gun in place, like so. And then we'll just pop a little glue on the spike there. Only needs a tiny little bit. Avoid getting glue on these control lines. Then just make sure that sits into the. There we go. Excellent. Right. Just do the next one, which is exactly the same process, but obviously we're going to be putting the slot for the ammo belt into the top of the deck there. So I will get that sorted, and we can move on to the next step. So now comes the point of mounting the electronics, and the method is exactly the same as in the 3-channel, apart from obviously we have an extra servo to load in here, and this servo actually sits on the left hand or port cheek of the compartment where the electronics all sit in the nose, and as a consequence, to help us get that in place comfortably, it is always advisable to put the main board over to the starboard side as far as it'll go. It just creates a little more room on the left hand side to actually position the servo. And I'm actually going to be using our newly learned technique of passing the power cable underneath the receiver before we mount it. And as you've probably seen in the video that I did a few months back, we actually position a couple of strips of the double-sided tape onto the rear, the underside of the receiver to create a little channel. So let me just pop that on there, obviously avoiding getting it near the or over the cogs on the servos, like so. I'll nip that a little bit off at the back there, trying to avoid taking off the the aerial, receiver aerial, and or antenna I should say, and the power cable. And then we'll put another one this side, so similar sort of width. Like so. And once again, without removing the antenna, take off the excess, like so. And then we'll pass the power cable underneath and put an additional servo tape on top. This is the full width now. Once again, we can take a few millimeters off the back, like so. If I just remove the tape from the other side, or the carrier material from the other side, exposing the other sticky side of it, and then ditto on the larger pad. And obviously this is a one hit, so make sure you do it accurately. There we go. And now we can position this. Oh look, I've got a little bit of an overlap here, which is going to hamper me putting it right across to that wall, so I'll just trim that there. That's it. And then let's remove that. And then pop this in. I usually use a pair of tweezers to help with this. And we've got a little aileron control rod in the way there. It's just it's got in the way again. Let's try that again. Okay, well, we're in. Let's just get that aileron control rod lifted out of the way. Don't want that sticking underneath. There we go. And then position it across to that right hand side and as far back as we can get it. There we go. Fantastic. So that's all in place. Now we need to think about positioning our servo, and that's going to go other way up. So the cogs on here should be facing forward, same as the main board, and that actually just sits in that position there. We've got some cable tidying to do as well, because obviously we've got this long cable here, and this actual connector sits into the, I believe it is the furthest back of the two servo connectors, but I'll just check that for you to make sure. It is indeed the furthest away from the front of the aircraft that we position the servo in. So before we do that, let's just see if we can get that cable out of the way slightly. There we go. That clears one of the obstructions. Let's just get all of that off the table, and then I just need another servo pad. Where's mine gone? So, got my other servo tape, so let's just start creating a little pad for our servo. Let's just divide these in two, and then we've got a spare one for later, and then our servo can sit on about half, and it's also got a there's a bit of a lump there. That's a little chip, and what we're going to do is actually create a little hole in our tape just to accommodate that, so the servo sits nice and flat on the pad. Otherwise it'll wobble around a lot, so let's just go. And to actually create the hole, it doesn't have to be particularly elegant, but if I just pop the servo onto the pad and push, it should create a little dent, and then that dent I can quickly mark out before it disappears using the knife. Go. Hopefully it's gone right through. We can remove the sticky bits removed. There is a bit of the tape on the other side, as you can see, but that doesn't matter. So let's just, before we stick it perfectly, let's just check that that sits in the hole. Let's get rid of that bit on the other side as well, so we can properly see it. Okay. I think I can make that hole a little bit bigger. Just opening up the two sides. It should be enough. Go. Yeah, that sits in there fine. So I need to create a little, or cut a little more tape off. Firstly, I don't want tape encroaching on the servo gears, so I will remove the, just marking it with a little cut so I know where to cut. There we go. And obviously we can remove some from the rear as well that's overhanging. So what's crucial here is the position fore and aft of the servo, because obviously we are hooking it up to the aileron control when we install it. So okay, so let's just remove the sticky or the protective pad and pop that into place with that chip poking through like so. There we are. So as I said, the servo gears pointing forward, and that should sit into place on the cheek like so. Now obviously you want to make sure that the gears are clear of any fouling, so that'll determine how high up you have it. So there is an opportunity for it to foul on one of the sort of retaining loops on the servo motor, so just need to be careful with the positioning, so it's just high enough to avoid hitting that. In fact, as long as you push the servo back as far as it'll go, it should actually sit in between those two hoops that the motor on the main board servo sits in. So let's the other point of fouling is the servo plug itself. So let's plug this in while we can. There we go, that's popped in. Then we can tidy the cable up later. Let's just check the positioning now. So I'm happy with the position there. It's not stuck there at the moment, it's just being held by friction. So the other thing that we need to do is try and get the control rod into the servo hole. So I've just popped that into, you can see there, that's gone into the middle hole just there on the servo arm. And now I just want to check the position internally as to where the aileron control arm is sitting, and that looks absolutely perfect. You've got the control arm running almost perfectly parallel fore and aft along the keel, and obviously then at right angles to that, perpendicular to that, you've got the control arm that's linked up to the servo. So that's looking really good. So the position of that servo, where it's sitting at the moment, is absolutely perfect, not fouling at all. I might just do a quick mark on the cheek with pencil, just so we've got the absolute location, and then I shall put it into a position where I can remove that pad, well the protective layer, there we go, and then put it back in exactly the same place, one hopes. So that looks pretty good to me. We're not getting any fouling on the gears. The other thing to look at is the other end of the worm drive that is attached to the control arm, and that's got a sort of an end to it, and if that obviously touches anything, then it will be pushing against that, so when it rotates, which you don't want. So that looks absolutely fine to me. So the only issue I have here is, have I got the cable for the servo in the correct position around the control rod? Should it have been on the inside? I don't think so. If we can work this so that the cable then runs nice and close at the top of the servo, it runs flat against the side wall, and we could actually use a little bit of glue to a little bit of the foam to foam, but more importantly, if we can get this to run underneath like so, then we can push this loop into the front space. There we go. So that's sort of nice and tight. I don't think we'll even need any glue there. So that's all tied it up, so it's sort of sitting against the left wall, the port wall of the fuselage. So it's quite compliant. So moving it around with tweezers, you can get a good go. So that all looks fantastic. So we now have the electronics in place. We've got the aileron servo plugged in, hooked up to the ACA, which is sitting internally there. That all looks perfectly aligned, and so I am happy. So that's how we put the electronics into the 4-channel Fokker D7. So I'm just installing the push rods for the tail feather controls, and it's worth noting that during the process, because we've got the ACA centered in the fuselage there, the rods have a little more furniture to get around to get out to the front compartment here. So don't be afraid to put some little bends into the rods themselves. You can see here I've actually put in a bend there where it goes into the fuselage. This is the rudder, and then I've actually got quite a long angled part to the rod before I straighten it out again, and that's because the rudder servo is on the opposite side to the rudder control, so there's a bit of crossover, and also I want to get it to the point where it is to one side of the ACA. No doubt I'll be doing the same on the other side as well, in the opposite direction, and so that's the way that I'm installing these rods. So don't be afraid to put some shapes into the rod so that you get nice clear run through to the front and not too much friction in between the servo and the actual control surface itself. up to you how you do it, but this works for me. Just bending before it goes into the fuselage, and then somewhere along this point, depending on which servo I'm going to, I'll put a returning bend to carry on its progress up the fuselage. I've got all of the electronics hooked up. I've got both control rods in, and I've plugged in the battery, checked everything's working, everything's got good movement, and so I suggest you do the same as well. And now it's time to pop the motor in. Now you'll have been supplied the hypermotor, and obviously there's no real difference in the size of the hypermotor and our standard motor, but obviously the hypermotor has a little more power if you use the right battery. Now these are the batteries I suggest you use, all very similar. These are 150 milliamp hour, but they're 45C, so they're a higher discharge rate, and that really helps get the most out of the motor itself. So on your ply sheet you will have W1, and W1 just needs releasing. And that's got a few little cutouts when compared to the standard 3-channel. You can use this cutout here for popping your power cable through, like so, and the other gap there is to accommodate the aileron servo that we've got there. Now we might have to do a little bit of jigging around with the cable just to make sure it's accommodated. So that we want to. This is just a dry fit at the moment. Just want to slide that tongue into the cavity at the back there whilst getting the, there we go. So as you can see, it surrounds the servo, allowing it to sort of poke up through slightly, and basically rests there. So what we need to do now is get our motor installed. So the motor on this aircraft sits upside down, as it were, like so, and those little legs go through those holes as per standard, so just like so. Now you can friction fit it, but what I suggest is using a little bit of glue just to secure it. So that's quite a tight fit already, but just pop that out and just put a couple of little blobs of glue on the underside, like so. And then bring that to bear, push that into place, and then you can leave it to set, to dry off like that. You'll notice that there is a slight offset to the motor, which is as it should be. This gives us a bit of right thrust to counteract the torque and the wash that comes from the prop that pushes the aircraft the other way. So that's been calculated into the build day, so you don't have to worry about it. And the other thing, we've got quite a long tail to this motor, and obviously when we connect it in there, there's sort of plenty of cable there, so we can just tidy this up by coiling it to some extent, just to make sure it stays out of the way. and is tidy-ish. So, well, that's a fairly poor attempt. I might give that another go a little bit later on, but we'll let the glue dry on the motor, and come back and just pop that onto the aircraft. So I've tidied the cable up underneath there. I'm not sure how well this will work. This is a bit of an experiment. I've used a little bit of servo tape just to stick it down, and this wire's quite stiff, so it tends to stay coiled up where it's put. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully that won't interfere with the servos underneath. So it's just a matter now of plugging the motor in, and the white cable should be on the right connector. So that orientation, it's twisted. I've actually twisted the cable just to shorten it some. Yours will probably come untwisted, so you can just put some twists into it. Yeah, so I'm going to pop it in this way. It should go straight in there. Might need a little bit of a hand. Let's bend it a little bit. Just go. Excuse the fly buzzing around. You've seen that. And so this then sits with the battery cable coming up through there. The alternative route is to thread it around the back of the bar on the bulkhead there, which you can do, but I'm electing to do it this way. See how we go. And then we just need to fix this in place, making sure that this tongue here is sitting on top of that bar, like so. And I'm just dry fitting this first, just to make sure that everything is sitting in place. And I think the cable there from the motor may well be interfering with the servos, so I'm just going to take that out and just rearrange it. So that idea didn't work. Let's just remove that double-sided tape, and so what I need to do is just make sure that the cable for the motor sits forward in that forward cavity, away from those servos. As I said, it's quite stiff cable, so it should, once placed, stay where it's put. So that looks a lot better. Not that you can see it, but I'm just pushing the cable down into that area. Now, I'm actually going to glue this plate in place, but just using a couple of blobs of the glue, so that if we do need to remove it, we can. So I'll just move it out of the way slightly. I'm going to put a couple of blobs on that rear bar on the bulkhead. And then a couple on the top of the V at the front there, and there. That's it. And then I'm going to sit that plate. Don't forget to thread the power cable. And just sit this plate in place like so. There we go. The motor should turn. That cog should go into the slot at the front where the chin is, and there should be a little bit of down thrust as well, as you can see there. So we'll just let that set. Everything seems to be in place. I'll just move that cable so that it's not interfering with the ply plate touching the sidewall there. As you can see, there's a lot more cable management involved with this. So anyway, there we go. That's the hypermotor in place using the modified W1 ply motor mount.